August 21, 1986 began as an ordinary night in Nyos, Cameroon. The air was thick with the usual sounds of crickets and distant animal calls, and the villagers settled into their homes, unaware of the horror that was about to unfold. The village was quiet, families at rest, the lake calm and dark. Children slept soundly, elders whispered stories, and the world seemed at peace beneath the starry sky. No one knew the lake was a ticking time bomb. Its placid surface hid a deadly secret, one that had been building for years deep below. Beneath its surface, monstrous pressure built in silence. Invisible to the eye, carbon dioxide was accumulating, trapped by the weight of the water above. Suddenly, a deep, unnatural hiss shattered the night. The ground trembled, and a force unlike anything the villagers had ever known was unleashed. Water erupted skyward, and a strange white cloud formed, hugging the lake. The eruption was silent to some, but to others, it sounded like the earth itself was gasping for air. This was no ordinary mist. It was heavy, invisible, and deadly. The cloud was pure carbon dioxide, denser than air, and it began to spill over the lake's edge. The cloud slid down the valleys at terrifying speeds, smothering everything in its path. It crept silently, rolling over fields and into homes, leaving no time to escape. People and animals simply stopped breathing, no struggle, no warning. The deadly gas replaced the air and life was extinguished in an instant. By morning the deadly cloud had vanished, but the silence remained. The sun rose over a village frozen in time, untouched by violence yet devastated. Survivors on higher ground awoke to a world transformed, families, neighbors, livestock, all dead, no wounds, no violence. The scale of loss was incomprehensible. The landscape looked peaceful, but it was a graveyard. The stillness was haunting, as if the world itself was holding its breath. The beautiful lake had become the epicenter of a massacre. Its waters, once a source of life, had turned into an agent of death overnight. The world would soon learn a new term, Limnic eruption. Scientists and journalists rushed to Nyos, desperate to understand what had happened. What could turn air itself into poison? How could a lake so tranquil unleash such devastation in a single night? The answer would shock scientists and terrify communities worldwide. The invisible threat lurking in deep lakes was now a global concern. The lake's secret had finally exploded into the open. The world realized that nature could hide dangers in the most unexpected places. In a single night, over 1,700 people and thousands of animals perished. The tragedy was swift, silent, and absolute. The air was fresh again, but nothing would ever be the same. The survivors would carry the memory of that night forever. The question echoed, what happened here? How could a peaceful lake become a silent killer? The story of Lake Nyos was just beginning. Its lessons would ripple across continents, changing how we view the natural world. The world was about to confront a disaster unlike any before. News spread rapidly, and fear of other silent lakes grew. A silent killer had struck, and its mystery demanded answers. Scientists raced to study other lakes, hoping to prevent another tragedy. The lake, once a source of life, had become a symbol of nature's hidden dangers. Its story would serve as a warning for generations to come. The tragedy of Nyos would change how we see the world's lakes forever. It forced us to look deeper, to question what lies beneath the surface. And it all started with a breathless, deadly night. A night when the lake itself seemed to exhale death, and the world would never forget. When rescuers arrived in the remote darkness, they were met with an eerie, unnatural silence. The village, once alive with laughter and daily routines, was now still, every home, every path, every field frozen in time. They found entire villages frozen in death, as if a sudden, invisible force had swept through, extinguishing life in an instant. Over 1,700 people and 3,500 animals had died within minutes, no wounds, no struggle, no warning. The devastation was total, leaving behind only questions and heartbreak. It was as if life itself had simply switched off, leaving behind a haunting calm that masked the horror of what had happened. The air was clear, the lake looked deceptively normal, but its waters had turned a deep, rusty red, a warning sign that few understood at the time. Theories swirled among the survivors. Some whispered of secret weapons, others of angry spirits or ancient curses. Fear and confusion gripped the community, but science pointed to a chilling truth. Asphyxiation. The cause was not supernatural, but terrifyingly real. The killer was carbon dioxide, colorless, odorless, and utterly deadly in high concentration. It crept silently, giving no warning, and left no trace but death. Lake Nyos sits atop a dormant volcano, a sleeping giant beneath the earth. Few realize the danger lurking below its tranquil surface. Magma deep below releases CO2, which seeps upward and dissolves into the lake's deep waters, building up over years. In most lakes, seasonal mixing allows gases to escape harmlessly into the air, preventing dangerous buildup. But Nyos is different. Its deep waters remain isolated, never mixing with the surface, trapping gases year after year. Warm surface water forms a barrier, locking cold gas-rich water below. This stratification creates a deadly reservoir, growing more dangerous with time. CO2 built up, trapped under immense pressure like a ticking time bomb hidden beneath the calm surface. The lake became a loaded gun waiting for a trigger, an event that would unleash its deadly contents. On that fateful night, the trigger was pulled. A landslide, or perhaps a sudden change in temperature, disturbed the balance. The gas erupted from the depths, rolling silently over the land, suffocating everything in its path, people, animals, even insects. The invisible killer had always been there, hidden by the lake's beauty, waiting for the moment to strike. The world now faced a new kind of natural disaster, one that could not be seen, heard, or smelled until it was too late. Scientists raced to understand how a lake could become so deadly, piecing together clues from the devastation. The answer would reveal a threat lurking in other lakes around the world, places where similar conditions could lead to disaster. Lake Nyos was not alone. Other lakes, equally beautiful and equally deadly, were out there, waiting. The silent killer could strike again, anywhere, anytime, without warning. The race to prevent another tragedy had begun, as the world learned to fear what lies beneath the surface. Picture a bottle of soda, seemingly calm and harmless, just sitting there until the moment it's shaken and uncapped. Inside, a hidden world of pressure is waiting to be unleashed. The pressure inside keeps carbon dioxide dissolved in the liquid but disturb it, and the gas erupts in a foamy explosive burst. It's a simple reaction, but the results can be dramatic. Now imagine that same principle but on a scale almost too big to comprehend. Lake Nyos was a soda bottle on a colossal scale, an entire lake primed for disaster. For centuries, carbon dioxide seeped up from volcanic rock and dissolved in the lake's depths, held in place by the immense weight of water above. The deeper the water, the more gas it could trap. The surface acted as the cap, sealing the gas in, keeping the danger hidden from view. But on August 21, 1986, something disturbed the balance, maybe a landslide, an earthquake, or even a heavy downpour. No one knows for sure what triggered it. The deep, gas-rich water began to rise. As it moved upward, the pressure dropped, and suddenly, the carbon dioxide could no longer stay dissolved. Bubbles formed rapidly, making the water even more buoyant. The rising water accelerated, releasing even more gas in a runaway process. A runaway chain reaction had begun, unstoppable and violent. In less than a minute, 1.2 cubic kilometers of carbon dioxide burst from the lake, surging out with unimaginable force. The eruption was silent, invisible, and deadly. An invisible cloud sweeping across the land. The lake had uncapped itself, unleashing a disaster that no one saw coming. This was the science behind the tragedy, a soda bomb on a deadly, unimaginable scale. Understanding this process became crucial. Scientists raced to study the lake, hoping to prevent future catastrophes and save lives. The world now knew lakes could explode, and there were others out there with the same hidden danger. The question was, which one would be next? Could we detect the warning signs in time? And most importantly, could we stop it before disaster struck again? The Nyos disaster wasn't the first warning. In 1984, Lake Manoon, just 100 kilometers away, killed 37 people in a similar mysterious event. Scientists identified CO2 as the cause and warned that Nyos could be next. The warning was clear, but action was absent. Local folklore spoke of evil spirits and deadly moods in the lake, ancestral memories of past gas releases. Survivors recalled the lake's water turning redder before the disaster, a sign of its growing sickness. Science and tradition both pointed to danger, but their warnings never connected. The signs were there: strange noises, changing water, uneasy stories. But no one put the pieces together. The lake's fever went unnoticed until it was too late. The disaster was a scream that followed years of whispers. The world had been warned, by science, by stories, by the lake itself. But the warnings were lost in the silence, and the price was paid in lives. The tragedy of Lake Nyos was not unforeseeable. Scientists had documented the risk after the Lake Manoon disaster. papers warned that Nyos could erupt in the same deadly way. But the warnings stayed in journals, never reaching the people or policymakers who needed them. No public awareness campaign, no evacuation plan, just silence. The lake's peaceful appearance lulled everyone into complacency. The risk was normalized, ignored, and forgotten. In hindsight, the path to disaster is painfully clear: a known hazard, a recent precedent, and no action. The deaths at Nyos were not just a natural tragedy, they were the result of human failure. The lake pulled the trigger, but inaction loaded the gun. The lesson warnings mean nothing if no one listens, and at Nyos, no one did. After the disaster, confusion and selective storytelling clouded the truth. Authorities focused on volcanic theories, downplaying the preventable nature of a Limnic eruption. The real story, ignored warnings and missed chances, was buried beneath headlines of a freak event. Media coverage missed the scandal. This was not just a bizarre act of nature, but a failure of responsibility. The official response fixed the technical problem but never addressed the deeper failures. The dead of Nyos were victims of both gas and silence. The story doesn't end in Cameroon. On the border of Rwanda and the DRC lies Lake Kivu, Nyos' bigger, deadlier sibling. Kivu holds 300 times more CO2 than Nyos, plus vast amounts of explosive methane. Over 2 million people live on its shores. If Kivu erupts, the disaster would dwarf Nyos: suffocation, fire, and chaos on a massive scale. Scientists know the risks. The lake is stratified, gas levels are rising, and the region is geologically active. Earthquakes or volcanic eruptions could trigger catastrophe. Cities like Goma and Gisenyi are in the blast zone. Unlike Nyos, Kivu's threat is not remote. It's urban, immediate, and global. The question is not if, but when. The world is living in the shadow of a natural bomb. The lessons of Nyos are more urgent than ever. Kivu is a test. Will we act or repeat history? The clock is ticking. After Nyos, scientists acted. They installed degassing pipes to let the lake breathe, safely venting CO2. The system worked. Nyos and Manaun are now much safer. But Kivu is a far greater challenge. Its size and gas volume dwarf the other lakes. Rwanda has begun extracting methane for power, reducing risk and generating electricity, but current efforts are too small to make Kivu truly safe. The technology exists, but scaling up requires massive investment and political will. The race is on to prevent a disaster. Science and innovation offer hope, but time is short. The world must act before Kivu's silence is shattered. We know the science, we know the risk, we have the tools. But are we moving fast enough to prevent another Nyos on a much larger scale? The threat at Kivu demands urgent global action. Will we invest in prevention, or wait for tragedy? The story of Lake Nyos was a warning. Lake Kivu is a choice. The answer lies in what we do next, before the lake decides for us.